Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Pakistan's caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haqqaqar addressed a very important presser today and sent out a very loud and a clear message to the interim Afghan authorities regarding their responsibility, especially after they took over Kabul 2 years before. They had made commitments with the international community, especially when it comes to not letting any terrorist outfit or any militant outfit operating from the Afghan soil. Prime Minister Anwarul Haqqaqar categorically said that Pakistan had many expectations from the interim Afghan authorities after they took over, but the situation had been otherwise. He also shared some statistics regarding the percentage of increase of terror attacks in Pakistan after the Taliban took over Kabul 2 years before. 60% increase in terror activities in the last 2 years in terror attacks that happened in Pakistan, and as a result of which 2,267 Pakistanis lost their lives also in these terror attacks. Now, regarding these terror attacks, many Afghan nationals were also found involved in those terror attacks, to the utter dismay of the Pakistani authorities, Pakistani people and the nation, especially when there was so many expectations of the interim Afghan authorities that they would be taking stern and concrete action against all the militant outfits as per their commitment to the international community, which was there in the Doha Peace Accord also. Now, a caretaker Prime Minister also has demanded the Afghan government to extradite Pakistanis residing illegally in Afghanistan and who are engaged in terrorist activities in Pakistan. At the same time, he has also said that regardless of the assurances by the interim Afghan authorities, the Afghan Taliban did not take any necessary measure against the terrorist outfits. Rather, clear evidence has also surfaced of facilitating them. This is a point of a major concern. We'll be taking the analysis on this particular point also from our panelists. The Prime Minister has also regretted the threatening statements by some of the Afghan leaders in the wake of the Pakistan's decision to repatriate illegal foreign nationals, which caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haqqaqar has categorically once again said that Pakistan has the legal and the moral prerogative to repatriate the illegal foreign nationals, stressing there will be no backtracking from this policy. How significant this presser was of caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haqqaqar? How should the interim Afghan authorities, after this important presser, be taking the message out of it, and what happens to be the responsibility, especially after this presser, that how should they be rectifying their course, especially when it comes to their bilateral relationship with Pakistan in particular? Let me quickly bring in our panelists. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Naveed Aman, Senior Analyst. Mr. Naveed, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. At the same time in the studio, we are joined by Mr. Air Vice Marshal Retired Ijaz Malik, Senior Analyst. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Now, let's start the discussion with the significance and the timing of this particular presser done by caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haqqaqar. Mr. Naveed, now the kind of a message that has been sent to the interim Afghan authorities, what do you expect? Would there be any change of course in the approach of the interim Afghan authorities, especially after this conference?
Jawad, this press conference is very important. The Prime Minister categorically has mentioned the frequency of terrorism and on the other side, repatriation of the illegal immigrants. Both both matters are very important for Pakistan. Number one, repatriation is a prerogative of government of Pakistan, and we have right to send back every illegal immigrant from Pakistan to their countries. Not only we are talking about the Afghan illegal immigrants, we are talking about all the illegal immigrants of every country living in Pakistan. number one. Number two is this. We have seen that the intensity of terrorism in Pakistan has increased. The number of terrorist attacks during the last 1 week are alarming. Pakistan has beared a lot. Pakistan has suffered a lot because of terrorism, and we have seen that Afghans and the Afghan Talibans or Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, they are involved in terrorism in Pakistan. We have, for many times, we have asked or addressed Afghan interim government, and we have requested them that they need not to back Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, as Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan are directly involved in attacks in Pakistan. And we have again seen that in these attacks during the last 1 week, many of the Afghans are involved, and we have found documents from them, and it shows that the Afghan Taliban are not serious as far as the terrorism matter is concerned in Pakistan. They will have to take care of it now.
Now, so the question naturally arises, Mr. Naveed, why do you think the Afghan Taliban, after the lapse of more than 2 years now, after they took over the Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, they made a commitment to the international community, especially when it comes to dismantling the terrorist outfits, havens over there, and not allow them to use the Afghan soil against any other country, particularly when it comes to the neighboring countries? Why, as per your understanding, over the last 2 years, the Afghan Taliban had been unable to control or that particular terrorism emanating from Afghan soil and take a concrete action against all those militant outfits?
And Jawad, the most important thing is this, that Afghan Taliban has not learned lesson from international politics or the dynamics of the regional politics as well. The importance of economy is very, very vital for the development of Afghanistan and Pakistan. If you hold weapons against your neighbors, we are not provoking anything to the Afghans to come up and open your fires on Pakistan. If you hold weapons in your hands, you cannot go for development and economic development. You would remember that China has started investing in Afghanistan and has sent ambassador to Afghanistan. It is all because China wanted Afghanistan to be the part of that economic activity, and that means to drop weapons from your hands and come in the economic activity. So Pakistan is also involving Afghan Taliban, Afghan government to drop the weapons and come and join the economic activity. And CPEC is a blessing for Afghanistan, is a good opportunity for Afghanistan to join CPEC and become the party and become the part of that economic activity.
A pertinent point that you've just highlighted. I'll come back to you to take your deeper understanding as to the dividends of regional connectivity vis-a-vis CPEC. What does it offer to Afghanistan, and what should be a realization among the Taliban ranks? Mr. Malik, again, I think we've repeatedly discussed this particular thing, trying to figure out as to what reasons have caused that inability on the part of the interim Afghan authorities in controlling those militant outfits, especially when we talk about the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, where there was so much expectation naturally by Pakistani authorities after they took over Kabul. After the course of more than 2 years, how do you think Pakistani authorities and at what level should be engaging with the Afghan authorities?
Before I answer your question, let me pay tribute to our caretaker Prime Minister, that he very candidly and very articulated manner, he has conveyed the actual ground realities and the aspiration of the entire Pakistani nation, who has suffered for past so many decades because of certain issues, a kind of militancy or the different regime what they have been doing in our neighborhood, and Pakistan was the direct victim. Just at time I just wish that if Afghanistan wasn't our neighbor and we were living in some other neighborhood, where would have been Pakistan as an economic power and as a developed welfare state? Just imagine what sacrifices have we given for them. ever since 1979. And after this new regime 2 years back in Kabul, while they promised to the world at Doha, and obviously and repeatedly they have been doing that lip service to us also, but practically they haven't taken any step. Because in my reckoning, the Afghan interim government and the TTP, they have convergence of certain interest in this region. So this is being purposely done. It's not that they are unable. They are not even willing to do anything which may or may not be within their power to do, because they do not enjoy that kind of freedom all over Afghanistan. So at best what they can do, they should cooperate with Pakistan.
But if they don't enjoy that complete control across the large swathes of the entire territory of Afghanistan, what about those particular areas that border Pakistan, and where actually that terrorism threat emanates
exactly.
from?
In the in the southern belt or Pashtun belt area, at least they can do intelligence sharing with us, and based on that intelligence sharing, then we can conduct certain operations to root out this menace. But actually they are not interested, and as highlighted by our worthy colleague, they are not realizing that whatever situation is there today in Afghanistan, it's not because of someone else is doing, but it has been the repeated government's failure in Afghanistan, wherein they have not availed certain opportunities which are available to them as far as joining the mainstream geo-economic domain of this rising global change. And secondly, as far as the repatriation of illegal immigrant is concerned, Pakistan government has very candidly and repeatedly mentioned it wasn't Afghan specific. Unfortunately, the large chunk which has been deported, it belongs because the Afghanis were more in numbers, so they have been sent across the international border. But what Pakistan has done, it is well within the authorized conventions, the United Nations charters. I mean, we just did what a sovereign state should do with illegal
Mr.
immigrants.
Malik, naturally, the curiosity among the people arises, what makes especially these Afghan authorities to overlook what Pakistani authorities and the nation has done in terms of generosity of hosting millions of Afghan refugees over the last 4 decades?
Actually, the narrative which is being built, unfortunately, I think our media, I am glad that PTV is taking time out and doing giving it very good coverage, 360-degree. But our mainstream media should highlight that these are not the Afghans in Pakistan. They are in 3 different categories, and they are the refugee status. We had given them registration cards. We had then again as a legal resident, there is another registration done. So these 2 categories, they continue to enjoy the same socio-economic status. They are not confined to camps. They are in KP. In fact, all over Pakistan, there are certain businesses which have been massively taken over by these Afghan, immigrants, so to say, refugees, and their second generation as enjoying all those facilities in our universities, colleges, medical hospitals, which any other Pakistani is enjoying. And so it would be naive to say on the part of anybody, or to understand on the part of anybody in the West, that Pakistan has not been generous to Afghanis. It is only the illegal people which do not carry any identity, any ID on them. So every country would do that. What Europeans are doing, or what America does to illegal immigrants who try to hop onto their mainland.
Illegal immigrants of every country which are in Pakistan. We are talking about all those.
Exactly, but there's been a very clear mention by Prime Minister in today's presser also. Now, it naturally happens to be a coincidence that majority of those illegal foreign nationals happen to be from Afghanistan. They belong to Afghanistan. Now, Prime Minister says that these illegal aliens have been the biggest role in stoking unrest in Pakistan, and especially when we talk about the upsurge or the uptick in terrorist attacks here in Pakistan in the recent past. Afghan nationals' involvement has been found in that. So Pakistan has a legal right and prerogative regarding repatriating these illegal foreigners from Pakistan in its larger national interest. Why would the world at large, and especially the Afghan authorities, as Prime Minister has also regretted about the statements which have been irresponsible and misleading on the part of some of the Afghan leaders, why would they resort to that?
Afghan leaders or Afghan Taliban representatives, they should mend their ways. And it's not the way they are behaving Pakistan. Pakistan has done a lot for Afghanistan and the Afghans for the last 4 to 5 decades. We have suffered a lot because of all the Afghanistan Afghans who have come to Pakistan. Even when Afghan Taliban took over 2 years back, more than 700,000 of 500,000 Afghans, they again came to Pakistan. So Pakistan has been feeding them or taking care of them. But if those Afghans are not taking care of Pakistan and they are not, saying, thank you very much, Pakistan, you have taken care of us, they believe that we haven't done anything good for Afghans or Afghanistan. Look, Afghanistan doesn't share any coastal area. So Pakistani coastal area is available for Afghanistan. And they have their trade through Pakistani coastal area. They are being blessed by Pakistan, and Pakistan is taking care of all this. If they are having their bread and butter because of Pakistan, that coastal area, they should be thankful to Pakistani nation and Pakistani government. This is a very important thing which landlocked countries like Afghanistan should keep in mind. And if only Pakistan reviewed this decision of giving that facility of coastal area to Afghanistan, Afghanistan will be in trouble, I tell you. But the way Afghans are behaving and they are responding to Pakistan or Pakistani nation, it's not the way. It's not the way.
So when we talk about the expectation of the Pakistani nation post international troops withdrawal and Kabul being taken over by the Taliban, that very expectation on the part of Pakistani nation and the authorities was pretty much natural because first of all hosting millions of refugees over the last 4 decades and then also facilitating the Afghan peace and reconciliation process, also advocating the case of the Afghans at the international fora. Also still to date, Pakistan continues to advocate the kind of dire humanitarian and economic crisis the people of Afghanistan were faced with, and then also re-emphasizing time and again upon the dignified repatriation of the refugees. Not even a single % of reciprocation. Rather, when we talk about the statements by very important leaders of the interim Afghan authorities, they come up with the denial that TTP doesn't exist on their soil and Pakistan should rather be taking care of this problem internally at its own. Why is that so?
Jawad, the most important thing is, as I have earlier mentioned, that Afghan Taliban, since they have taken over 2 years back, they haven't learned that dynamic of the regional politics. They should have established very good balanced relationship with Pakistan, with the other neighboring countries as well, because the entire region is getting developed. The economic activity is very much seen in Pakistan, in Central Asian states, in China. So
the connectivity, when we talk about the recently held Belt and Road Forum, the delegations were also in participation at that particular forum also.
Yes, it is. But Afghanistan is not becoming that active part of these forums, and it's not getting
they haven't
benefit.
learned any lessons by far. What would make them to learn those lessons and become the part of the solution rather than being the problem?
economic activity is the main course, because once you get in economic activity, you leave the weapons aside, because that is your life and that is your future. They have not paid attention towards the education or liberty of Afghan women in Afghanistan. They are not taking care of the economic activities within Afghanistan or in the region. I mean, they are going in opposite direction. This opposite direction will definitely damage Afghanistan and Afghan society. And it is damaging. And it is not damaging Afghan society, as it is damaging the neighboring countries as well. So Pakistan is the main country on which Afghanistan depends.
So if that particular pattern continues, what way forward, especially when we talk about the bordering neighboring countries would have in the future? Mr. Malik, now, rather than giving those irresponsible and threatening statements when in the wake of the repatriation of the illegal foreign nationals from Pakistan, don't you think it was ideally and naturally the responsibility of the interim Afghan authorities to create that conducive environment for the dignified return of all those Afghan nationals who had moved to others neighboring countries and come back there?
Exactly. Actually, what they should have done, and they still can do if there is, if the sanity prevails. They, first of all, at the cost of repetition, I would say whatever has happened in past 20 years, which has brought the economic situation or unemployment or all kind of disasters, even to the extent of having non-availability of medicines and food insecurity. Pakistan is not responsible. It was Afghans and the international community, the coalition government led by America and NATO forces who were managing this affair for past 2 decades. Now, surprisingly, I was just hearing today's press briefing by one spokesperson, senior deputy spokesperson, Mr. Patel from USA, and he was trying to tell that Afghanistan's neighbors should try to accommodate them and they should be helpful, and sermons like that. So I would like to ask them, where is their responsibility? It's all they are doing. And secondly, right now I can tell you, the most of these illegal Afghans in Pakistan, these are and there are still many. I can, with degree of surety, I can tell you, these are those Afghans who were indirectly or directly involved in helping out the NATO forces in Kabul. And American State Department, they promised them to repatriate them to America. And some of them, they came to Pakistan on the pretext that they will be taken by air routes from Pakistan. It wasn't done. So obviously this status becomes that of an illegal alien or immigrants. Even now in Afghanistan, there are around 130 to 40,000 those Afghanis who were promised by American State Department, and there was a ruling of American Congress to repatriate those people. American State Department tried, around 10,000 were done, and then the contract was cancelled, and till date no funds are provided. So it is the international community who should come forward. We have accommodated these refugees out of our own resources. UNHCR, initially, of course, during the time of Soviet invasion, there was support to these people in Pakistan. But then, in the past so many decades, this is our economy which is supporting them. By providing them the economic opportunities, be in the transport, be it in the grains, or you think of anything that these Afghan people are involved in Pakistan. They are at liberty to do any business or any labor.
Mr. Malik, you highlighted a very important point regarding the role of international community's responsibility when it comes to the woes of the people of Afghanistan ravaged by war, especially over the last 2 decades, when it comes to the role and the responsibility of the United States of America in particular. We saw with the takeover of Kabul by the Taliban, they also froze the Afghan assets, and also there was a promise made for the resettlement of Afghan people who have collaborated with them, had served them during their 20 years over here. But they haven't fulfilled those promises. Mr. Naveed, what's your understanding of this phenomenon when it comes to solely, exclusively the responsibility of the United States of America that waged war for 2 decades over here, then also pulled in a lot of funds when it was Hamid Karzai's government as well as Ashraf Ghani's government? Don't you think there should have been a better framework of institution building in Afghanistan that could have led to progress and prosperity rather than Afghanistan standing at the very same point where it was 20 years before when US invaded it?
So one thing is very important, that America never meant to establish institutions in Afghanistan. They spent their time and they left Afghanistan. And when they left Afghanistan, they left heaps of sophisticated weapons back in Afghanistan, which are now being used by Afghan Taliban or TTP against Pakistan. Yes, it should have been, but America has never opted this way of establishing the institutions or helping in establishment of the institutions in any country where they attack. Like, if you consider Iraq, they haven't done anything for the infrastructure of Iraq, left Iraq on debris. In Afghanistan, they went for war for 2 decades, and when they left Afghanistan on debris. It is the only responsibility of that nation who rebuilt itself. I mean, no country like America will go for the reconstruction or reestablishment of that.
But there were rather 2 different governments. One earlier that was led by Hamid Karzai, and then Ashraf Ghani. There was so-called democratically elected governments. So what was their responsibility? If there was no intention on the part of the United States of America, if it had invaded Afghanistan with some other intentions, so what ideally was the responsibility of those democratically elected governments in Afghanistan? I'll take your detailed view on this later. We are now joined by another participant in the show on the phone line, Mr. Parvez Jamil Mead. He's senior journalist. Mr. Mead, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. We're discussing about the kind of message that has been delivered by caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haqqaq to the interim Afghan authorities in today's very important presser. Where do you see the approach of the interim Afghan authorities, especially in the wake of this particular presser? Do you expect any rectification in their behavior when it comes to fulfilling their commitments? Mr. Mead, can you hear me, please? I think unfortunately we've lost the connection with Mr. Mead. We'll try to reconnect with him. Mr. Naveed, please go ahead. Now, what was ideally the responsibility of those democratically elected government if the intention on the part of the US administration was something else?
Yes, it is the prime responsibility of Ashraf Ghani government and Karzai government to establish, it was their prime responsibility to establish institutions of Afghanistan. When America was involved directly in Afghanistan, that was very a good opportunity for them. But since it was not the intention of America to establish the institutions in Afghanistan, it should have been in responsibility of the Afghan governments, the then Afghan governments, Karzai government and the Ashraf Ghani governments, but they did not do.
On the face of it, those governments were by and large also inclusive, government by and large on the face of it,
yes,
comprising all the stakeholders. Mr. Malik, what was the responsibility of those democratically elected governments if intention of the US administration could have been otherwise?
I will take 2 aspects of this, your question. First of all, the state.
Mr. Malik, I really seek your pardon for the interjection over here. Let me go once again back to Mr. Parvez Jamil Mir, a senior journalist joining us on the phone line. Mr. Mir, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. What's your understanding? Do you expect any sort of a change in the approach and the behavior of the interim Afghan authorities, especially after today's important and significant presser by the caretaker Prime Minister, Mr. Anwarul Haq Kakar?
Well, first of all, let me tell you what our incumbent Prime Minister, caretaker Prime Minister has done. No other caretaker Prime Minister has taken that initiative, what Prime Minister Kakar has taken. He went to Afghanistan, spoke to them, gave them a viewpoint. Now that shows that every government, no matter what government it is, we're all there for peace, for tranquility, and for regional peace. And that is all what we want. So I think Pakistan has always extended their hand, and I think it's been a great thing. And now it is up to the Afghans to come out openly and openly to let us help them, because we're always there to help them. We're always there. Okay, we've had little, let's call, irritations now and again, which takes place all over the world. But Pakistan holds a very special, part with Afghanistan. Look at it. I mean, on a lighter side, look at it. We've trained the Afghan cricket team, and now they're giving us a tough time. So I think what we need to be doing is sitting together, joining our heads together, and fighting this menace of terrorism, whether be in Pakistan, whether be in Afghanistan, or anywhere. And I'm sure the Afghan authorities will always look for it.
But Mr. Mir, to the utter dismay of the Pakistani nation, we haven't seen any sort of a commitment fulfilled so far on the part of the interim Afghan authorities. Of course, it is really heartening to see you say and expecting the interim Afghan authorities to come up and join heads with Pakistan to counter terrorism. But there had been a 60% increase in terror attacks over the last 2 years since the Kabul takeover by the Taliban. That has been expressed very categorically by caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haq Kakar. On the contrary, Pakistani authorities have repeatedly been saying that they are desirous of the fact that they want to sit and negotiate with the interim Afghan authorities so that they fulfill their commitment that they made with the international community. But on the other side, we saw continuous denials on the part of various Afghan Taliban leaders. Where and how Pakistan should be moving ahead as far as its engagement with the interim Afghan authorities is concerned from this point onwards? Mr. Mir, can you hear me, please? I think, unfortunately, we have once again lost the connection with Mr. Mir. Now, Mr. Malik, please go ahead.
I was trying to highlight that if we just go through the archives of the American intervention in Afghanistan post 9/11, their stated objectives categorically included, beside socio-economic uplift, and the main objective was capturing dead or alive Mr. Osama bin Laden. And they promised the Afghans that they will rebuild Afghanistan and they will create special economic zones. They never did that. The best they did was that they provided funding for the capacity building of their law enforcement agencies. But unfortunately, most of that money has not been spent well, as the colleague was highlighting, by those two successive governments. And that money, reportedly, there have been so many scandals that
there were the number of UN reports also regarding the corruption being rampant.
Exactly.
In those governments.
So that almost in the tune of 500,000 employees of their law enforcement agencies, they are not equipped. They are not have been made sustainable to take over a province or a city if they were really well equipped, well trained by Americans who stayed there for 2 decades. So this is a joint failure of those people who at that time posed as if they were representing the broad based interim regimes or elected regimes in Kabul. And of course the international community, who have spent billions there in bombing the areas which were irrelevant to that war theater. If you just see the air activity of that time, which was over and around Afghanistan by the NATO forces against an enemy which didn't have an air force. So if I can tell you with my background, if they would have spent only the cost of those air sorties which they were flying in and out of Afghanistan on the development in Afghanistan, every Afghan with their limited population would have gotten a very good livelihood and dropped the weapon and happily lived after.
Mr. Naveed, I think you're holding a very important point.
Yes, it is very important that the Afghans should learn the way the world is moving ahead. They depend upon narcotics. They depend upon illegal trafficking of narcotics in different part of the world, and weapons. They depend upon the earning of ransom money. They don't do work. They need to involve themselves in work or in economic activity, which they don't believe. But the world cannot move in their way. They will have to follow those ways and means which the world is opting for that development. Development will mean a progress and mind change of the Afghans in Afghanistan. And that if Afghans mind...
Who is going to change that mind?
I mean, they will have to change themselves.
Even if the international community for the last 2 decades with their presence
The
and
world is
with the
doing a lot.
so-called democratically elected governments couldn't change that mindset. They
Jawad,
continue to stand at that very same point and create problems for the neighboring countries, especially in the region. Who's going to change that?
Jawad, they will have to change themselves. Nobody can change any nation. The nation will have to change itself or themselves. They will have to learn, and they're not ready to learn. The world is moving in different direction, and they are moving in different direction. As I have earlier mentioned, the world is giving importance to the education and development of the women in their society. And Afghans are, they are abandoning Afghans, women and the children or the girls from the schools, jobs, and they have cut off their that 50% of population from the mainstream. This mindset will definitely damage Afghan society and will destroy Afghanistan in future if they did not change their mindset and did not follow those dynamics of the international world, the way international community is moving. On the border, how China is moving, or how Central Asia is moving, how Pakistan is moving on economic grounds. CPEC is, I have earlier mentioned that CPEC is one thing which is very important and is a blessing for Afghanistan as well. If Afghanistan wants to take advantage of that CPEC, Afghanistan can develop itself, Afghanistan can get benefit out of it, and can change its mindset, change its society, and move ahead. Afghanistan will have to, or Afghan Taliban will have to throw weapons aside.
Let's talk about the perspective from the Afghan, interim Afghan authorities now. Pakistani authorities have a number of times also offered help and assistance when it comes to the capacity building as far as counterterrorism is concerned. When it comes to advocating Afghan's case also to avert that humanitarian dire economic crisis over there in Afghanistan is also concerned. Now, specifically talking from their perspective, what could be their priority, what they could be looking up to towards Pakistan that they could get immediately from Pakistani authorities?
One thing is very important. They are not being acknowledged by the entire world. And for the last 2 years, they are isolated because of their own behavior and treatment and mindset. First of all, they need to work in a different direction so that the entire world or international community come towards them and acknowledge them, first of all. If the world is not going to acknowledge them, it will be the Afghan community, Afghan society, Afghan government who will be the main loser. And if you carry on this way, how long you will exist? You cannot exist any longer in that way the world is existing. The world will move on a rapid pace in a different direction, and you will be moving towards cave ages or the stone ages. You cannot help your society in this mindset. You cannot.
Mr. Malik, what could be that particular first main area in which, if we talk specifically from the Afghan perspective, what they could be expecting from Pakistan at this point in time?
First of all, they should do certain, CBMs with Pakistan as well as with the international community. That would be the first step that some countries would recognize them, and that will be an icebreaker for others to follow the, the money which has been, frozen by America, and some kind of regulated intake of food supplies and medicines, and that is the only way. If they continue to show their stubborn attitude, and how can a country, in fact, right now, all other countries, there is an international meltdown, there is economic meltdown all over the world. No country, including Pakistan, is in a position to do something extra for them. We have already done beyond our capacity. So now this is their responsibility to ensure at least something on their part which gives at least some optics of being, sanity prevailing in their foreign policy. If they continue to be stubborn and they think that they can just by the only neighbor that, where they can do something is Pakistan, and they can pressurize Pakistan to by, harboring terrorism in Pakistan.
With the help of terrorism, you cannot force any country to go for you.
And I think the Prime Minister has taken the first step today, which no government has taken in the past, that in very clear terms we have, told them. And I think the next step should be, God forbid, if there is something happens again, we should warn them and penalize them for that. Okay. That's the only way.
Right. So penalizing them, there are a number of possibilities in regard to that particular thing. When you specifically talk about the confidence building measures, yes, the prime concern Pakistani side has got is vis-a-vis terrorism. Right? The responsibility of the interim Afghan authorities to dismantle banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan in particular. So if there was any sort of an expectation that there's still not any acknowledgement on the part of international community as far as the recognition of them is concerned. So when we talk about this confidence building measures, don't you think the Afghan authorities should ideally be starting from this first step?
Even before that, first of all, they should learn and start to respect the sanctity of international border with Pakistan. They even do not, recognize that border, and they continue to violate despite our fencing. So, first of all, if they want to be treated as a sovereign state, they should respect the sovereignty of their neighbors. First of all, they should, the first counter building measure should be on table. If I have to make a draft, I would say they should respect and ensure the sanctity of the international border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And then, of course, providing us the intel, if they can't do themselves, to conduct operations to take out those hideouts in Afghanistan territory, because that is the only option left to us. We cannot be kept hostage to their weaknesses or their lack of interest in ensuring peace in the region.
Right. Now, I'll come to you, Mr. Naveed. One supplementary question with that. When you talk about penalizing them, if this particular very important point, that they should learn to respect the sanctity of the international border. Presumably, if that doesn't happen, as we've seen, they haven't fulfilled any of a commitment they have already made with the international community. Mr. Naveed, in his earlier take, had talked about Afghanistan being a landlocked country, and for most of its trade, it has to be dependent on Pakistan for the flow of goods in that particular. If I may be allowed to say it, it happens to be a geographical handicap for any territory to not have that access to the port, the seaport, right? How can Pakistan utilize that if such type of confidence building measures are not visible?
Remember, post Salala, once Pakistan stopped the logistics support through land routes of Pakistan, what happened to the NATO alliance in America, in Afghanistan. So there are examples. Actually, to be honest, I am not well aware of the international regulation about the landlocked countries and responsibility vis-a-vis the neighbors who can give them access. So legally, I can't comment on that. But yes, that could be an option.
Right, Mr. Naveed, unfortunately, we're short of time. Your quick comment regarding what could be, according to you, the first confidence building measures on the part of interim Afghan authorities?
Number one, Jawad, one thing is very important that as far as the terrorism in Pakistan is concerned, TTP is involved in that phase of terrorism, and it was very good opportunity for Afghan Taliban to stop TTP to attack on Pakistan and oblige Pakistan, which Afghan Taliban have lost and have not, obliged Pakistan by having influence on TTP. It shows that Afghan Taliban, TTP is proxy of Afghan Taliban in Pakistan, which Pakistan will never bear any longer. And the number two thing is, if Pakistan stops that smuggling, it's Pakistan's right. Smuggling is no longer allowed to Afghanistan or from Afghanistan to Pakistan. I mean, if they go for that trade legally, it's okay, fine. We are ready to go for that trade, but not illegally. And they have that problem. They want that smuggling continue between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which Pakistan has disallowed. And if they mind it, they mind it. We don't mind it, because we need to take care of Pakistan, and if they are not taking care of Afghanistan, it's their headache, and we are not going to bear any pressure from Afghanistan or Afghan Taliban any longer right from this moment. And if there is any terrorist attack or any such incident happens in future, Pakistan will not tolerate the way Pakistan has been tolerating. Pakistan has given much time to Afghanistan, which Afghanistan
has given much time to interim Afghan authorities to mend their ways and fulfill their international commitments, especially when it comes to dismantling the terrorist outfits which are operating from there, and the threat of terrorism that emanates from the Afghanistan's soil. Mr. Naveed Aman Khan, analyst, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we were joined by Air Vice Marshal retired Mr. Ijaz Malik, senior analyst. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for your time. Also, once again, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.